Welcome back to Largemouth Lunkin. I want to get back into the series of bassing on a budget. And what I want to go with is I showed you my first combo, the Black Max Baitcaster. See if I have that available. So Abu Garcia, Black Max, the Baitcaster. Served me pretty well. There we go. So it served me pretty well with my first rod. First rod and reel setup. The question is, what should you go with first? Should you go with the bait casting rod and reel setup, which is what I had, or should you go with the spinning rod and reel setup? And that spinning rod and reel, in case you're unfamiliar with that, if you're completely new to fishing, looks like this. So this is the Abu Garcia Silver Max reel. Just so you're aware of what you're looking at, the 30 series. And this has been paired on an Insight Pro Advantage medium rod with fast action. That's what we'll get into in a little bit. So the big question is, which one should you start off with? For me, I started off excuse me. So I started off with a baitcaster, and why? As I was reading and going through YouTube, I was in the late spring, early summer period when I started, right around June, bass fishing seriously. So what people were doing, spinner baits, crank baits, chatter baits, and throwing a lot of things that were at least 3/8 ounce and heavier. What I was learning was throwing into cover being bushes, weeds, under trees, in trees at times, also with jigs. So what I had learned is that the bait caster was more accurate. You could control your cast better. Long, short cast. You could stop your cast in the middle so that you wouldn't throw your bait right into a tree or right into a bush, or if it's going off the wrong way, you can use your thumb and stop it completely. So that's what you have the advantage with the bait caster. For example, with this bait caster here, this is also a Black Max, but it has been paired with an amp rod by Berkley. And that's just what happens once you start moving out of the combos. And once you start moving out of the combos, things start to get more expensive. To get in basic level, I went with the combination on both my spinning and my bait casting setups. What happened is I broke my spinning setup, I snapped the tip in the door, and then from there I moved into other combinations as I needed. But here, you operate these with your thumb, and so you click the spool, and then you control how much you cast with your thumb, and it helps. It helped me a lot, especially not knowing what I was doing, being out there casting and it going crazy. I was able to stop it quickly and save as many of my baits as I can, because with bass fishing, the bass love cover. They love structure. So, one, that's a big deal. So you're going to be throwing rocks and bridges and bottom structure. And they love cover. So there's going to be a lot of bushes and limbs. Long story short, you're going to lose a lot of jig heads, a lot of lures. You need to go where the fish are at. And from what I've heard, if you're not losing those, say every once in a while at least, you're not really bass fishing. Other people may disagree, and if they do, they can show me how to keep more. I would be really open to not losing my lures. I lost a lot of lures as I learned what to do. Now, back to the major thing at hand. With spinning, I've been using a lot of spinning as it's become winter time. So spinning now, I'm throwing a lot lighter weight, jig heads, Ned rigs, which I'm going to get into in my next video. Uh, but lighter baits in general. So harder to throw on a bait caster, especially for a novice. Um, do a lot of bird's nests if you don't. The spinning rod and reels are a lot easier to handle. So when it comes to which one is better, it depends on what you're more comfortable throwing. Excuse me. As you can tell, I got a problem with my voice, but I want to keep these coming out to you. It's winter. I've been out almost every day, so I haven't been feeling the best. Sorry about that. But with spinning, it's helped me out a lot. Sometimes I'm throwing 3/16 of an ounce, 1/16. I throw a lot of 1/8 ounce jigs. So with the Ned rig, and that really helps to get those out further. No bird's nests, and I can concentrate on fishing. So that's the major thing there. What are you going to be comfortable throwing? Whether it's going to be worms, whether it's going to be jigs, whether it's going to be lipless crankbaits, and what size at that. Your spinner baits, your chatter baits, your jerk baits. Size is going to matter, at least while you're getting started, and it did for me. So if you don't want a lot of frustrations and bird's nests, you would go with a spin caster if you like a lighter technique. Now, like I said, I started off late spring into summer, so I was going with much heavier half ounce, 3/8 and up of an ounce, and from there, my bait casters really helped me out a lot. So I wanted to make this video just to clear the air on that. I know my first setup was a bait caster. You can go another way. It's not the absolute setup. It did help me in the summertime, and it helped me catch my PB. I wouldn't have thrown the bait I was throwing on a spinning rod, and I probably really won't. I was throwing a chatterbait, and with that, I caught my PB, 7 pounds, 11 ounces. And I wouldn't have been throwing that on a spinning setup, and I probably never will throw that on a spinning setup unless I go with the lighter models. I know that Z-Man, I use a lot of the original chatterbaits, and with Z-Man, they've gotten lighter baits. They've got 8 different versions, of which I recently found out about. So maybe on the lighter setups, which who knows what that would have produced for me. At that time, I was throwing a 3/8 ounce, and that worked well for me on a bait casting setup. Those are the basic setups that you'll use with your bass fishing. It's going to be a spinning setup, or it's going to be a bait casting setup. Doubt if you'll use spin casting. Some people do, and very few people use bamboo pole, which I grew up on, which has no reel at all. Very few people fly fish, and that's a whole nother matter, and that's something I've barely explored. I'd love to get into if anybody knew anything about it. I don't see many people doing it for bass fishing. This being largemouth lunkin, we're bait casting and we're spin casting. Spinning reel, excuse me, not spin casting. So, any comments that anyone has? I have a few friends, some that like to go heavier when they bass fish, some that like to finesse fish. All comments are welcome. Their comments are welcome. Again, this is a community for us to learn, for me to learn, as well as for my viewers to learn. And for anybody, even if you're advanced, you should be able to get some tips and tricks from my videos. That's the hope, that's the goal, that we could all become better bass fishermen and overall anglers in general. Thanks for watching Largemouth Lunkin. And don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to give me comments on things that you would like to see handled from a newbie standpoint, and not a beginner, and the trials and tribulations that you have starting off as a bass fisherman. So signing out.